you were elsewhere and now you're really coming home in a big way. How much money will you be investing?
600 billion.
600 billion. All right. It's a lot of jobs.
We're very proud to do it.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
If you think Trump was the first US president to demand iPhones to be made in America, you are wrong. Back in 2011, at a private dinner with Silicon Valley's elite, President Barack Obama turned to Steve Jobs with the same challenge. What would it take to make iPhones in the United States? Jobs didn't flinch. His reply was brutal. Those jobs aren't coming back. Welcome to Global Supply Chains 101, brought to you by Steve Jobs and his zero tolerance to DIY iPhones. Fast forward 14 years, and the debate hasn't gone away. It's only grown louder. Trump threatened a 25% tariff on every iPhone sold in America unless they were made domestically. His message was clear: bring the factories home. And yet, here we are in 2025. And Tim Cook just confirmed most iPhones Americans buy won't come from Texas or California, but from India, which has now overtaken China as the top smartphone exporter to the US. Meanwhile, Apple is investing a jaw-dropping $500 billion in the American economy, funding AI, servers, and even manufacturing education, but not building iPhones here. So the mystery is unavoidable. If Apple can throw $500 billion into America, why can it make the world's most iconic phone on US soil? Before we continue, I ask you to hit the like button, subscribe and share this video so you won't miss even more global myth exposed. Want to know how much a US-made iPhone could cost? Watch till the end. When most people picture making an iPhone, they imagine robots doing all the work, but the truth is far more shocking. It takes people, and not just a few thousand. At peak production season, Apple's main partner Foxconn employs nearly 900,000 people in China. That's almost the population of San Francisco, all working for a single company.
Many of these workers even live in dormitories next to the factories, so production can shift overnight if Apple needs to ramp up millions of extra phones. It's a level of flexibility and scale that simply doesn't exist in the United States. Now, imagine trying to recreate this in America. To assemble iPhones here, Apple would need the equivalent of building an entirely new city staffed with nearly 1 million specialized workers, trained to handle microscopic components with extreme precision. For perspective, Foxconn's iPhone workforce alone is larger than the populations of cities like Boston, Seattle, or Denver. One single supply chain hub in China can outmatch entire regions in the US.
That's the scale of the impossible. Building iPhones isn't just about opening a factory. It's about recreating an entire industrial ecosystem, the size of the metropolis. Is the US phone factory of this scale even possible? Share your thoughts in the comments below. In the 1970s, America was a manufacturing giant. Back then, more than 1 in 4 workers, 26% of the entire US workforce, had jobs in factories. Fast forward to today, and that number has collapsed to just 8%. The factory floor that once powered the American dream has nearly disappeared.
But the bigger issue isn't just fewer workers. It's the kind of skills modern manufacturing now demands. Making iPhones isn't about hammering metal or turning wrenches. It's about coding, robotics, precision engineering, and running complex supply chains with digital tools. And here's the catch: the US simply doesn't have enough people with those skills at scale. Even if Apple built new factories tomorrow, who would staff them? David Marcotte, a global manufacturing expert, puts it bluntly: expertise takes years to develop. You can't train 1 million highly specialized workers overnight. China and India spent decades building this workforce, step by step, while America moved away from it.
This isn't just a gap, it's a generational hole, and filling it would take far more than money. It would take time, education, and the complete culture shift back to manufacturing on a scale the US hasn't seen in half a century. By 2025, China isn't just important to smartphones, it is a smartphone capital of the planet. The numbers are staggering. 80% of all smartphones worldwide, over 1.5 billion devices every single year, are built in China.
At the heart of this empire is Shenzhen, often called the Silicon Valley of hardware. Within just a few miles, you'll find Foxconn's giant iPhone factories and thousands of suppliers. Everything from microchips to screws, ready to deliver instantly. This tight network means Apple can design, prototype, and scale production faster than anywhere else in the world. Tim Cook himself has admitted that China offers a rare intersection no other country can match. Skilled craftsmen who can assemble delicate parts, advanced robotics to boost speed, and computer science expertise to run the entire operation at massive scale. It's not about cheap labor anymore, it's about mastery of manufacturing.
And here is a twist. China isn't just Apple's factory. It has become an innovation rival. Companies like Huawei, Vivo, and Xiaomi are pushing smartphone cameras, 5G, and battery technology to levels that can even challenge Apple. In other words, Apple's greatest dependency is also becoming its greatest competitor. In 2025, a seismic shift in global trade shook the tech world. India officially overtook China as the top smartphone exporter to the US. For decades, China was an undisputed king of electronics, but now nearly 44% of American smartphone imports come from India, a massive leap from just 13% the year before.
This wasn't a coincidence. A mix of tariffs, trade wars, and pandemic-era disruptions pushed companies like Apple to rethink their dependence on China. The solution? Shift production to India, where Foxconn and other manufacturers rapidly scaled up operations, supported by government incentives and a young, low-cost labor force. But this raises a pressing question. If Apple can pour billions into Indian factories, why not build them in the US? Wouldn't Made in America be the ultimate branding triumph? The truth is harsher. Costs in the US are simply too high. Labor, energy, and regulatory hurdles make it impossible to compete with Asia.
On the top of that, supply chains are deeply rooted in the region. Raw materials, chip assembly, and component suppliers all cluster there. Finally, politics adds another layer of uncertainty, making the US a risky bet for long-term production. What if Apple really did bring iPhone production back to the United States? Analysts have run the numbers, and the results are staggering.
A brand new iPhone, made entirely on American soil, wouldn't sell for $1,000 or even $1,600 like today's high-end models. Instead, the price tag could rocket to $2,500 or $3,500. Some extreme estimates go even higher, suggesting a Made in America iPhone might cost anywhere from $30,000 to $100,000 per unit. Why such an insane gap? First, the supply chain simply doesn't exist here. In Shenzhen, thousands of specialized suppliers sit within a few miles of each other. In the US, those parts would need to be imported or rebuilt from scratch. Second, American labor costs are far higher, triple, even quadruple what Asian assembly lines pay. Third, research and development expenses would climb, since building custom tools and training a brand new workforce would take years. And finally, automation isn't advanced enough to replace the sheer human scale of Asian factories.
The bottom line? What cost $1,000 in your pocket today could cost 3 times more if we're stamped with Made in America. That's the price of nostalgia versus global reality. Would you really pay $3,500 for one US made? Forrester analyst Dipanjan Chatterjee sums up it perfectly. Economically, bringing production to the US isn't realistic, yet refusing isn't tenable politically. Apple is walking a delicate tightrope. Its massive $500 billion investment in America is going into research, AI, servers, and education, but not large-scale iPhone assembly. Even Apple's Mac Pro experiment in Texas proved the challenge. Producing a high-end device locally faced bottlenecks and delays, showing that scaling iPhone production domestically is a whole different game. The truth is clear. The Made in America iPhone is a powerful political dream, but an economic myth. The real question is whether automation, robotics, or new technologies in the next decade could ever change the rules, or if America will forever remain a consumer, not a producer of the world's most iconic smartphone. If you enjoyed this deep dive, hit that like button, subscribe, and share this video so you won't miss our upcoming Global Myth Exposed series. Next one's brewing. Stay tuned.